Now, we'll make a pansy. If you'll notice, as this pansy comes out, the petals of the pansy comes out, we have very deep colors coming out from either side of the pansy. And this is done by stripping your bag in these bright colored flowers. But you see, I'm squeezing and jiggle, 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 stop. Squeeze, jiggle, 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 stop. Again, the pansy is made in royal icing. After it's dried, we will peel it off the wax paper and then place it on a cake top. Now everyone, all aspiring cake decorators, the thing that they really want to make is a rose. Everyone wants to make a rose, and it seems to be the most difficult flower, and actually it is a little difficult. But first of all, again, using the flower nail, we have to get the icing stiff enough. If the icing is not stiff enough, your rose will never stand up. So you can see I'm building up a cone first. And for this cone, if the cone fell down, naturally the entire rose would fall down. But if you'll notice, I'm making little short petals. Squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn, squeeze, turn. The last row, I'm dropping it down a little bit, up and down, squeeze and turn, squeeze and turn. See, I'm turning in a counterclockwise direction. Squeeze and turn. There's the rose. So as you look and view some of these flowers, you'll notice that depending on what we are doing, sometimes using the same tube, I will make a very tiny petal, you see? Very tiny petal. Or I could make a larger petal or a very large jiggling petal. So the fun thing about cake decorating is you really don't have to be an artist, actually. All you have to do is have a few pieces of equipment, maybe $4.95 worth of equipment, and the proper procedures and the proper icing. And you, too, can become a flower artist. You know, flower making, as you think about it, we did all these various flowers with one or two different tubes. So it's not so much the tubes, but it's the proper technique. And figure piping would be the same type of decoration, only here we're using round circular tubes, and we will use tubes like number 3 to, say, number 10, depending on what we're going to do. The bigger the figure, the fatter the tube. So let's try a little figure piping and see how it's done. We're looking at an interesting children's cake, and the thing that makes this so unique are the little clowns that are piped around the side. Figure piping really isn't as difficult as it appears to be. It's kind of like three-dimensional drawing. You take a children's coloring book with very simple figures and lines, and we're going to do the same thing in icing today. Let's start off making a simple little clown. I'm using like a number 10 tube, and I put a little ball which makes the clown's head, and another little ball for the bottom portion of his face, and then his body, and of course one leg coming out to one side and another coming out to the other, and a couple of little lines for his arms, and not trying to be too perfect with it, you know. That's the thing that makes figure piping difficult. You always want to do everything just exact. And after all, when you're kind of sketching like a little children's cake, we don't do things so exact. I'm using a number 3 tube to do the trim. If you'll notice, there's bright colors coming out of here. Before I put my icing in, I dipped the brush into paste colors and then put the stripe of icing in the inside of my bag before I added my color. Before I added my icing. And in that way, you see, I got this very bright paste color and bright look with my icing. Okay, so much for the clown. I think next the kind of interesting thing to do would be to do a witch. And for the witch, I'm going to use the same tube. It's a number 10 tube. Let's say we would do this witch on a chocolate cake, but of course you're going to be working on an inverted cookie sheet for practice. But on the witch, we would first make a hook for the nose, you know, and then we kind of come around for her eyes, and then I'm building the head up and then the hat. And witches are all kind of pretty ugly looking people, so you can't go wrong how bad this witch looks. That was the upper portion of her body. For some reason, most witches are all female. I don't know why. But here is her right arm and the broom that comes up. You see, she's riding the broom. And so far, we haven't put any clothes on this witch. It looks like she's streaking. But we'll put a few clothes on her here. And here's her hair flying in the back. This is her left arm holding onto the broom. And maybe she's just coming in for a landing, and she's just clearing the fence, if you can see what I mean here. You can see? There she is, just coming in there for stalling out for her landing. But if you notice, you see, all the lines are kind of simple and easy, and I haven't tried to be too precise and get everything just exact. I think next we'll do a bird. Kind of interesting is I'm going to figure pipe this bird. I have put a strip. If you could see, I put a very bright strip of orange on one side, and then I put a strip of green on the other, using a brush, and I've added yellow icing. Now, watch what happens. This is the kind of the fun thing about decorating. If you notice, see, I'm making, first of all, the wing. Now, all the things I've been doing here, I've only used about 4 different tubes. See that wing? And now the tail, but with 4 different tubes. You know, you're talking about, you're really in the decorating business, in a fun kind of a hobby decorating business for, maybe spending $3.95 or so. And this is something that you can do continually. Every celebration, you can do a cake. I'll tell you one thing about decorating. Once a person learns to decorate, they never stop. It's not like some hobbies. You just use it all the time because you're continually celebrating occasions. You notice I'm putting the top portion here. If it's a good-looking bird, you see, in the bird family, if it's a very good-looking bird, we call it a male. And if it's kind of ugly, why, it's a female. Of course, that isn't true in real life. But if you notice, you see how cute that is? And, you know, all kinds of things you can do. If we did this bird, and it turns out pretty good, we could make a little nest, you know, and if I was going to make a little nest, I'd just kind of jiggle around like that and put a bunch of little stuff in there. And I could have a couple of little birds coming out of there if I wanted to. But you see, all kinds of little things in decorating. It's really quite simple and fun. So think about getting the children's coloring book first. Think about what you're going to do and keep your decorating simple. The important thing about figure piping is try not to be too exact with whatever you're doing. Notice the little mice we have here. Just a series of blobs and dots. Another interesting creative art form is candy clay, or sometimes called gum paste. This is where we take an edible dough and using wooden tools, we form and shape various paper-like flowers that almost look real. Connie, show us how it's done. We're looking at a decorated cake today, but interesting enough, it's very different. On this particular cake, we have gum paste or candy clay flowers. And we're going to introduce you to a Wilton decorating specialist. Her name is Connie Ryherd. She is going to demonstrate today and show us some various types of candy clay work and gum paste work. Also, I might add that Connie is a co-author of a book on gum paste and candy clay. So Connie, tell us a little bit about it and what are we going to do here?
Well, gum paste is also called candy clay, and that might be a better term to use because that shows that you can eat it. It is edible.
And it's made from, I forgot.
It's a type of icing. It's made from powdered sugar, lemon juice, corn syrup, water, and then a special ingredient called gum tragicam.
Ah, yes.
But you wouldn't be afraid of that. This also is edible. One of the nice things about gum paste is it can be used on flowers, or it can be, flowers for cakes, or it can be made for flowers for vases, bridal bouquets, and this sort of thing.
You do arrangements like this too,
yes.
don't you?
And this is one thing I'd like to show you now. Also, these are the carnations, and I'd like to show you how to make them.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay, first of all, in this art, we have many cutters we've developed. Right now I use about 20 all the time, and
you're rubbing in here what kind?
That's corn starch.
I see.
I use that so that this clay or paste does not stick. I don't want it to stick to my cutters or the sticks or the board or anything.
I see. The powdered sugar keeps it from sticking. Oh,
no,
the corn starch keeps
right,
it, and the powdered sugar makes it stiffer.
Right.
I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Now this is the cutter. It's about the size of a $50. It's just a disc, and I'm going to cover this that I'm not using. because it does tend to dry out rather quickly.
I see. And depending on the humidity, the drier it
Right.
is, the more it dries. I see.
Right. Now, I'm using just a stick here.
Oh, yes.
It isn't just a stick. I
Uh-huh.
have a series of sticks I use, different
see.
sizes for different flowers.
Spinning it down. Great.
I'm starting in toward the middle,
Mhm.
and as I come off to the edge,
see.
I'm using the point of the stick.
Oh, yes.
And this will tear it, so it gives it the appearance
Oh,
of the
What
carnation.
a technique. I see.
Now you can see it's beginning to stick a little, so I need more cornstarch.
You give lessons and teach in
Yes,
this?
I do. I sure do. And the very interesting thing about this, and it's almost unbelievable, you can teach this, you can learn it in a week. And that I know because I have had students that after a week I couldn't tell my flowers from their flowers.
That's great. Okay, you've got to go all the way around this. This takes a long time.
It looks a little monotonous, but it isn't quite as much as you'd think.
Let me see.
It's a good feeling when you see this happen.
Okay,
Okay, we're about half finished with it.
good. We have about 2 minutes to go, so we're going to whip that little carnation out there.
Isn't it pretty, though?
It is. It's beautiful.
You might show some of the
Let's-
orchids or
well,
some of the other arrangements while
We
I
can
finish
just kind of
this.
look at a this is a carnation that's finished. And I notice all these little bright red things. Did you put those on by a brush?
Yes, I made them white originally, and then I added paste color, which is
see.
also edible, to the edges with a brush.
Interesting. Again, as we're talking here, I'm looking at these flowers as you're making the. Each one of these are made with a different type
Different
of cutter
colors,
and a little different technique.
Yes.
Probably
and
what you're doing though is one of the toughest flowers, is it not?
This
to make?
is about the next to the last flower we get to
I see.
in the class. The last one, of course, is the orchid,
I see.
because it does take a little longer to learn. Now, when this is finished, I've gone all the way around.
Okay.
I'll take water on a brush and wet just the center. This makes it sticky.
I see.
So now I'll fold it over to the middle,
And the water keeps it together.
right?
Isn't that
And
cute?
press it up to the ruffle.
Oh,
Only to the ruffle,
what a
because I want the ruffles
beautiful.
flared.
More water for
Water
what
here.
now? To make it.
So I can make it stick again, because now
see.
I want to add a piece of
Oh,
floral
yes.
wire to the center,
Oh.
and I
So
turn
this
it
is
up.
how you got each individual on a wire. Yes.
Turn it up in thirds, and now pinch it together again to the ruffle, and
I
this
see.
completes the flower.
Beautiful.
It has to
Great.
dry now, but this is it complete.
All right, Connie. As I'm looking at that, now that's great. How about this? Is that a
This
little
is a
easier to
patina.
make?
Yes, it is.
Uh-huh.
I hold it here in this part of my hand, and I would
Oh,
ruffle
yes.
the same
Only-
way, like this.
A little bigger ruffles.
Yes,
I see. Okay. Well, that's so interesting. Just what would you sum up like in the Gumpaste work? Is it about the same as decorating, a little more difficult, or what?
No, I'd say it's a lot like cake decorating, but it has a lot of challenge because it's something you can do as a craft. It's
I
a
see.
hobby. It isn't just decorating. You don't have to do it in your kitchen. You
Very
can do it
good.
on your living room table if you want.
Thank you so much.
Thank
that was
you.
really interesting. With gum paste, you can roll it out like a pie dough, place a pattern on it, cut around the pattern, and when that hardens, you stand it up, and you can take these various sections and glue them together in royal icing, so you can construct houses with it. You can put gum paste into little heart molds and make individual patterns with that. I hope that throughout this film we've kind of aroused your curiosity and your interest and would make you want to possibly join one of the thousands of classes that are going on throughout the country right now. And, of course, the second best thing would be to get a Wilton book on cake decorating and follow those instructions. But whatever you do, let's get into cake decorating. It's a fun thing. Not only is it a creative way for you and a fun thing for you, but the children, the whole family will enjoy it. It's a great way of self-expression, and let's get with it and be one of the creative, happy decorators in this country.